The title of my presentation is Externalization of an Agentic State, a spiritual path towards digital enslavement. In this presentation, I will explain how esoteric ideas about transforming people and the planet into perfection underlie the global digital control system that currently is being constructed. This applies in particular to theosophy, its connection to Freemasonry, and how these philosophies have inspired both the modern New Age movement and transhuman ideas of transcendence with technological means. These two paths to enlightenment finds its synthesis in techno-spiritualism. Theosophy is an esoteric movement with its roots in Western occultism, Neoplatonism, Buddhism, and Hinduism, which was founded by the Russian mystic Madame Blavatsky in 1875. The teachings have a close affiliation with the ideals and philosophy of Freemasonry, with its emphasis on spiritual development and the moral and ethical perfection of the adept. One of the core beliefs is that the hierarchy of wise, enlightened, and perfected beings are guiding the evolution of mankind. The idea of an enlightened inner government had been pioneered in 1785 by the German mystic Karl von Eckartshausen in his book The Cloud Upon the Sanctuary, who referred to this secret brotherhood as the Council of Light. Eckartshausen derived his beliefs from Rosicrucianism, alchemy, and Hermeticism. Eckartshausen was an inspiration for Madame Blavatsky, who attributed her theosophical teachings, a synthesis of science, religion, and philosophy, to a group of spiritual adepts she had encountered during her travels around the world. However, these were living physical men and not spiritual beings. Blavatsky labeled these the masters of wisdom, or the great white brotherhood. These hidden masters have since been widely popularized by the modern New Age community as ascended masters. According to the teachings of Alice Bailey, 2025 is the year when the spiritual hierarchy will decide when to externalize physically on the world stage as visible leaders. Bailey, a British author and teacher, wrote 24 books on esoteric philosophy between 1919 and 1949. 20 of these were claimed to have been dictated telepathically by the spiritual master Djwhal Khul, also known as the Tibetan, who had allegedly contacted Bailey while she was working as an editor at the Theosophical Society's journal The Messenger in Crotona, California, and asked her to write down his teachings. In 1920, Alice Bailey and her husband, Foster Bailey, the Society's national secretary, were expelled from the Theosophical Society because her claims of communication with Djwhal Khul were questioned by then leader Annie Besant. The couple relocated to New York City and founded their own organization Lucis Trust in 1922, with a mission to establish a new and better life for everyone in the world based on the fulfillment of a divine plan for humanity. Alice Bailey's husband Foster, who was a 33-degree Freemason, wrote in his book The Spirit of Masonry that a master of wisdom was a Masonic initiate who had perfected his skill and achieved the highest degree in Freemasonry, a light bearer with the ability to assist in bringing humanity into light, a co-creator with a great architect in building the Temple of Wisdom. References to the work of the Masonic Order can be found throughout Bailey's books. Alice Bailey was also deeply connected to co-masonry, a branch of Freemasonry open to both men and women. According to Alice Bailey, these illumined minds are carrying out a divine plan that seeks to establish a brotherhood of nations with a global consciousness. They claim that this will result in the perfection of the world, which means the realization of the kingdom of God and the reappearance of Christ, the world teacher. The return of Christ is prophesied to result in the restoration of the mysteries and a unification of all faiths, a new world religion. As stated in Initiation, Human and Solar, prior to the coming of the Christ, adjustments will be made so that at the head of all great organizations will be found either a master or an initiate who has taken the third initiation. Followers of Bailey's teachings are urged to support the forces that seek to plan for the good of humanity, especially the United Nations, an organization they believe will lead to the promised utopia. Lucis Trust has, since the United Nations founding, highlighted the importance of their goals and activities as they represent the voice of the peoples and nations of the world. The Lucis Trust office in New York is strategically located at United Nations Plaza, overseeing the UN headquarters. But they also have offices in the government district of London and the international power hub Geneva in Switzerland. Lucis Trust even claims that the spiritual hierarchy or masters of wisdom had a direct influence on the founding of the United Nations. United Nations Conference on International Organization in 1945 actually took place between two of the most important festivals for Lucis Trust. The full moon of Vesak, that is a Buddhist tradition celebrated in Tibet, and the full moon of the Christ Festival. The latter is an event celebrating the spiritual potential of humanity to unify the personal will with the will of God. It is also noteworthy that Bailey's writings promotes Anglo-American unity in order to lead the United Nations and to solve the problems of the world. The German and Japanese enemy during the Second World War were on the other hand labeled as the Lodge of Black Adepts, or the Lords of Evil. According to theosophical mythology, part of a conflict that had begun during Atlantean times. This is despite the fact that the hierarchy gives itself the credit of having influenced the formation of the world ideologies from which the Black Lodge built its power. The release of an atomic bomb over Hiroshima in 1945 by the United States, the forces of light, is seen in a different light and is described as the greatest spiritual event since the human kingdom appeared. In fact, the goals of Lucis Trust corresponds very well with the views of the Round Table movement and the philanthropic agencies that spearheaded the creation of the League of Nations and the United Nations. One of the movement's most influential members, the former Prime Minister of South Africa, Jan Smuts, wrote the Charter to the League of Nations and drafted the preamble to the UN Charter. The Rockefeller family donated the land for the UN headquarters and has provided immense support to the organization since its founding. The Round Table movement was founded by British statesman and colonial administrator Lord Milner to expand British interests around the world, unite the English-speaking world, and promote a world federation based on the will of a prominent imperialist Cecil Rhodes. Members of the movement founded the front organizations Royal Institute of International Affairs in London and Council on Foreign Relations in New York for this purpose. Additional parts of this network are also later offshoots like the Bilderberg Group, the Club of Rome, the Trilateral Commission, the World Economic Forum, and the major philanthropic organizations like Carnegie Endowment, Rockefeller Foundation, Ford Foundation, and Gates Foundation. The influence of this network on world politics, education, science, and arts has since the beginning of the 21st century been immense. Given the overlapping goals and close connection to the United Nations, it can be argued that the Lucis Trust acts as their spiritual department. In March 1945, Lucis Trust initiated the Cycle of Conferences project with the goal of influencing important global summits by evoking energies of divine will, visualizing and anchoring them in human consciousness. This has since been done through their affiliated NGO World Goodwill. This meant that the international conference would be brought under guidance from those in the council chamber at Shambhala who know the will of God. A prayer to support the plan was introduced at Christ's Festival in 1945. In the Reappearance of the Christ, it was written that this new invocation, if given widespread distribution, can be to the New World religion what the Lord's Prayer has been to Christianity and the 23rd Psalm has been to the spiritually minded Jew. The directed mass meditation visualization is described by World Goodwill. The group immediately projects a lighted seed of will energy and develops into a pulsating heart center, radiating the light, love, and power of the great invocation throughout the event and its participants. This is essentially a magical ritual. As the current president of Lucis Trust, Christine Morgan, states, if we talk about meditation, we are working with energies and applying them. And when we apply them, they become a force. Their main focus has obviously been the major meetings of the United Nations. This especially concerns the Sustainable Development Agenda and the 17 Global Goals, as they spell out a vision of right relations for all peoples and all people. But the Cycle of Conference has since 2011 also included the meetings of World Economic Forum, an official partner to the United Nations since June 2019, with a mission to accelerate the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. These two powerful organizations act as executors of the plan, with Lucis Trust aiding with spiritual assistance. For example, restructuring the economic field in accordance with the divine plan. So, what is the plan and how has it been carried out? The great plan to reshape the world towards great unity was initiated in the first half of the 1900s by members of the Round Table movement. Oliver Reiser was a professor of philosophy at the University of Pittsburgh, who would have a profound influence on the future world order. In his many books, he formulated a grandiose vision for the future development of man and the coming of a world federation based on the philosophy of scientific humanism. Reiser a Freemason and theosophist, described this as the world sensorium, a perfect world system that would house mankind. In his book, The Promise of Scientific Humanism from 1940, he advocated an artificial acceleration of human evolution using radiation, radio eugenics, with the aim of reshaping human nature to suit the demands of the social engineers of a future utopia. Reiser labeled this transformative experiment the new alchemy, with a reference to Lucifer the Lightbringer, as the art of alchemy was said to have been given to humanity by the fallen angels. In 1954, Reiser was invited by the Lucis Trust to write the preface to Alice Bailey's book Education in the New Age. This book was published 5 years after her death. Reiser was a regular contributor to the Lucis Trust magazine The Beacon, where he in 1943 had written about education for world unity. One of Reiser's role models was the sci-fi author, futurist and evolutionary biologist H.G. Wells, who in his book World Brain from 1938 describes a vision of a world encyclopedia that could help world citizens to access universal information resources and achieve world peace. Wells was best known as a writer of science fiction novels, but had also political ambitions. As a member of the socialist think tank Fabian Society, he advocated the introduction of world government through legislation, a goal that was also shared by Reiser, which was addressed in books like Open Conspiracy and The New World Order. Another great inspiration for Reiser was the evolutionary biologist Julian Huxley, a grandson of Darwinist Thomas Huxley and brother of Brave New World author Aldous Huxley. Julian was the first Secretary General of UNESCO and President of both the British Eugenics Society and the Humanists. He wrote the book trilogy The Science of Life with H.G. Wells in the late 1920s. Both Julian Huxley and Oliver Reiser cherished the French Jesuit priest and paleontologist Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. Chardin is known as the Christian transhumanist, with his doctrine that human consciousness will converge in a global sphere of thought, called the noosphere, and that this will result in the mystical state of the omega point, where everything unites into one and man becomes post-human. Reiser described his global vision as the construction of Solomon's temple, but not in the form of a physical building in Jerusalem. In his case, the temple was a spiritual temple of a planet that houses all of mankind. This means the ultimate unification of the human family. His idea was to construct a world brain that would oversee and direct human development evolution. As can be seen in this diagram, a world university and a world press would provide humans with the right knowledge and values. The project, called Prometheus and Krishna, would be a temple in the sky of satellites and information technology that would watch over the new human. In Reiser's last book, Cosmic Humanism and World Unity, he outlined the aims of his future world utopia with a common language, a world religion, and a controlled evolution, but would adapt and integrate humanity into a world organism. The creation of this new creature would even make contact with extraterrestrial worlds possible. The aim of cosmic humanism was to integrate all knowledge towards that end. To achieve this vision, two clear goals were set. One, there must be a clear intellectual recognition of and profound emotional devotion to the proposition that total planning for a global civilization is necessary. And two, there must be evolved scientific techniques for this overall integration and practical educational programs for the clarification of goals and the demonstration of how to attain them. This would be achieved with the assistance of some of Reiser's disciples. These included systems theorist Erwin Laszlo, engineer Willis Harman, futurist Barbara Marx Hubbard, and the New Age writer José Argüelles. Barbara Marx Hubbard, a wealthy heir to a toy manufacturer, was a co-founder of the World Future Society, where she was a member along with Reiser, Laszlo and a number of other futurists and global planners. The members shared the vision of creating a global civilization and that it was man's duty to lead evolution. Some of the more well-known names that have been or are still part of the World Future Society are Buckminster Fuller, Arthur C. Clarke, Gene Roddenberry, Herman Kahn, Alvin Toffler and Ray Kurzweil. But influential political players like Al Gore and Maurice Strong can also be mentioned here. In 1975, their conference, The Next 25 Years, Crisis and Opportunity, was held with Laszlo and Hubbard as participators and Vice President Nelson Rockefeller as opening speaker. Here, strategies to achieve a humanistic utopia, a perfect world system, were discussed. If a perception of a world in crisis would be widely accepted, it would provide opportunities for creating a global civilization with a global consciousness and global governance. The crisis scenarios were based on the world problematique, with population growth, resource depletion and pollution, that the environmental think tank Club of Rome had highlighted in their influential report Limits to Growth from 1972, and subsequent reports like Goals for Mankind by Erwin Laszlo. Also attending this conference was Willis Harman from SRI International, an institute that was closely intertwined with the US government, the Department of Defense and the CIA. Based on a shared vision of a need for transformation, he and SRE developed an action plan for creating a new globally oriented man for a post-industrial society in the project Changing Images of Man. Two future paths for human development were presented. One was about the creation of a global consciousness with an enlightened global human. This included the understanding of globally interconnected problems such as the environment and the need for a planetary ethics. The second was a dystopia with central planning and totalitarian methods of control over citizens. A consequence of continued industrialization with global corporations that exploit every corner of the earth without regulation, patenting and modifying life itself. These two tracks would become opposite poles in the dialectical game of thesis, antithesis and synthesis, almost like a white lodge, black lodge formula. In this, several members of the World Future Society would participate as key players on both sides. This would later lead to a synthesis around the establishment of global goals such as Agenda 21 and the Earth Charter. In Changing Image of Man, it was suggested that Masonic symbols were effective to use in the transformation, in view of the fact that these were part of the symbolism surrounding the American Republic. Masonic principle had a fertile ground within the World Future Society as it reflected their ideals of world betterment. What was always in the background was the creation of a technocratic world system, the merger between the socialist and capitalist systems, as futurist Warren Wager said in 1980. The most likely scenario for the future involves the welding of the government and business communities of the major industrial powers into a single, more or less monolithic, more or less coordinated system of control that will manage the capitalist world economy in the 21st century. To this end, it was deemed necessary to create a new global religion, Gaia, a religion promoting human control of evolution and commitment to internationalist causes. This came with a new ethics. Previous atheistic systems had failed because they had omitted the spiritual dimension. According to Oliver Reiser, a number of religious figures could be used to create the unity that was sought. The religion would also be pantheistic, that is based on the idea that everything was animated by the Spirit of God. However, Reiser's version was basically a technological and soulless copy with a techno-god directing the destiny of man. Preparations were already underway. During the mid-1970s, the Lindisfarne Association began holding annual conferences with the aim of realizing a new global civilization built around the ideas of Teilhard de Chardin, with the Rockefeller Brothers Fund as one of the financiers. The themes discussed were planetary culture and the new image of humanity, and conscious evolution and the evolution of consciousness. Several of the participants, led by William Thompson, will later populate the New Age scene. One of the participants was David Spangler, an early student of Alice Bailey. His book, Revelation, The Birth of a New Age, is often seen as the starting point for the modern New Age movement. In the following years, a large number of books on similar themes were published, such as Marilyn Ferguson's The Aquarian Conspiracy and Shirley MacLaine's Out on a Limb. The New Age movement slowly gained a foothold in the 1980s. Ferguson and Spangler were both invited as speakers at the World Future Society's International Conference in 1980, an event where Barbara Marx Hubbard fused the New Age philosophies with space exploration, artificial intelligence, and the mind-expanding technologies of the future. Hubbard would soon become an influential New Age teacher in her own right. On December 31st, 1986, she organized the World Peace Meditation with the intention to shift collective consciousness towards unity, love, and co-creation. This in turn inspired New Age author José Argüelles to arrange the mass global peace meditation Harmonic Convergence in 1987. 144,000 souls were to surrender their destinies to the will of the planet in what can be labeled as a magical ritual. The term harmonic convergence had been borrowed from Alice Bailey, a key inspiration for Argüelles. The harmonic convergence also began a 25-year countdown to the year 2012. Argüelles was greatly inspired by the end date of the Mayan calendar and through his research pointed to December 21, 2012 as the shift when humanity would unite in a higher consciousness. This shift would also bring an end to all evil in the modern world. He described this in a number of books, of which The Mayan Factor from 1987 was the first. His ideas were closely linked to the emerging UFO religions, where Bailey's enlightened master had transformed into the Galactic Federation of Light, a group of benevolent extraterrestrials overseeing the development of Earth, with clear reference to Arthur C. Clarke's novel Childhood's End. The shift, called the Biosphere-Noosphere transition, had its origins in the teachings of Teilhard de Chardin, Vladimir Vernadsky and Oliver Reiser. This was about the construction of the planetary information network being completed at this time. This opened up for humanity to be united in the mystical body of Christ, what Teilhard de Chardin labeled the Omega point. The ideas were indeed techno-spiritual. In 1993, Barbara Marx Hubbard published the book The Revelation, Our Crisis is a Birth, about how humanity would escape Armageddon and gain Christ powers through the application of technology. The book, which was financed by her beloved patron Lawrence Rockefeller, a brother of Nelson and David, had been channeled through a voice calling itself the Christ. The voice had in early 1980 started to instruct Barbara on how to build the new order of the future. Mankind would merge with technology for the purpose of saving the world and creating a Christ consciousness. Our bodies would be rebuilt to conquer space. The Revelation, Our Crisis is a Birth, was published the same year that systems theorist Irving Laszlo founded the Club of Budapest, a sister club to the Club of Rome, with Barbara, José Argüelles and Willis Harman as members. It brought together thinkers and cultural figures such as Arthur C. Clarke, Desmond Tutu, Mikhail Gorbachev, Mary Robinson and Deepak Chopra to act as a catalyst for the shift to a new peaceful world civilization outlined in the New Age literature. In 2001, Laszlo published the book Macro Shift, which presented a plan for the coming transformation. This was largely based on Oliver Reiser's ideas from cosmic humanism and world unity, with a foreword by futurist Arthur C. Clarke, the screenwriter to Stanley Kubrick's movie 2001. It was timely published 2 days before 9/11. A shocking event that would trigger the start of a great transition to a planetary culture. The Great Transition Initiative, led by Paul Raskin from the Club of Rome and funded with seed money from the Earth Charter coordinator Stephen Rockefeller, with the aim to explore concepts, strategies and visions for a transition to a sustainable society, anticipated how the so-called yin-yang movement, with New Agers and environmentalists, would influence the agenda. This was clearly inspired by the ideas developed in the 1970s by Stanford Research Institute. In 2005, the Club of Rome, Club of Budapest and Gorbachev Foundation united with a number of other organizations under the slogan "Creating a New Civilization" to facilitate a paradigm shift toward a new civilization. The recipe for transformation was grounded on 4 foundational components, the 4S components uniting sustainability, systems, science and spirituality. The goal was set for 2012. They declared that the crisis we face today offer an unprecedented opportunity for a major leap forward in human evolution. This resulted in the launch of the World Shift 2012 initiative on September 9, 2009. 999. It included Laszlo, Hubbard and Arguelles, but also Lawrence Bloom from the World Economic Forum's Global Agenda Council on Urban Management. It was the WF's technological solutions that would ultimately build the peaceful, just and sustainable world. As stated in the World Shift Declaration, designs for sustainable systems, structures and technologies are being developed and implemented in all sectors, at all levels and in every society. Early that year, José Arguelles and Erwin Laszlo organized the Noosphere Congress in Bali with the aim of preparing the world for the great shift in consciousness, where humanity converges towards the same ultimate goal, the Omega point and the coming of Christ. As illustrated on the Noosphere Forum, this event is overlapping with the technological singularity. The realization of a noosphere would have a distinct transhumanistic component, here illustrated with brain-computer interfaces, connecting humans to computer networks, using immense computing capacity and interacting directly with global mind sentience. The ideals of a peaceful utopia and a global consciousness had merged with the solutions for human enhancement promoted by the futurists in the transhuman movement. The Laszlo Institute would later explore how AI could augment human consciousness and a possible future where AI acts as a co-evolving partner in conscious evolution, humanistic transhumanism. As in childhood's end, the new humanity are to become one with the overmind. The images shown on the Noosphere Forum's webpage have obvious references to alchemical transformation, with the all-seeing eye, Hermes Caduceus, the Rainbow Bridge and Lucifer. By uniting the consciousness of humanity, it was claimed that the catastrophe would be avoided, bringing to life a new mutating being called Homo Noosphericus. The Noosphere Congress described how the application of Tesla technology would create this new paradise on Earth. The governing system was referred to as noocracy. This is government of the wise, inspired by Plato's Republic, in this case using information from the collective digital world brain as the basis for the decision making. The RAND Corporation published a report about the rise of noopolitik in 2020. This described the development of noocratic governance in a more plain language without Arguelles' New Age references. In 2010, a constitution for the Noosphere was created. The location was Astana in Kazakhstan, a city full of esoteric symbolism. Note the toe pillars inspired by Freemasonry, a reference to the Temple of Solomon. A new age with a new humanity awaited. Arguelles proclaimed that the earth wizards would begin to rule. So, what happened in connection with the great shift in December 2012? What happened to the promised golden age? José passed away in 2011 and did not get to experience the finale, then humanity would become part of a cosmic civilization. The promised land that would end all evil and bring peace to the world failed to materialize. Instead, we had the smartphone revolution, with humanity ascending to the digital realm. On 12th December 2015, at the last day of the climate change conference in Paris, World Economic Forum's Fourth Industrial Revolution was declared by Klaus Schwab. His article was published in Foreign Affairs, the main publication of the Round Front Group Council on Foreign Relations. The technologies of the Fourth Industrial Revolution were the tools that would enable the reconstruction of the planet and humanity to suit the demands of the social engineers, the modern-day alchemists. In June 2019, the WEF signed a formal partnership with the United Nations. A powerful alliance was forged with the goal of implementing the 2030 Agenda with technological efficiency. This constituted the synthesis between World Future Society's two paths into the new order of the future. The Japanese presidency of the G20 gave it the name Society 5.0. With the COVID-19 pandemic as a trigger, a very common plan to upgrade the international system was set in motion. Irving Laszlo called the pandemic a blessing in disguise, a chance to create a better world. However, as the United Nations and WF fused their agendas, parts of the New Age movement turned to a new savior, who promised to defeat the evil cabal and provide them with free energy, advanced alien technologies, a new quantum financial system, and 1,000 years of peace. But behind the facade hides essentially the same system of digital control, aiming for the stars, supported by the same corporate oligarchy. In September 2021, the United Nations published our common agenda with 12 future commitments aimed at realizing an upgraded multilateral system. This led up to the Summit of the Future and the outcome document Pact for the Future in September 2024. Basically a blueprint for a digital panopticon built with the technologies of the Fourth Industrial Revolution to achieve United Nations Sustainability Agenda, where collecting data from the world's citizens is intended to develop foresight capabilities, a global brain which will make it possible to shape the future and manage global risks. Loses trust and world goodwill viewed Summit of the Future as an important moment in humanity's ongoing response to the divinely inspired urge to formulate a plan. The pact was said to pave the way for a brighter future for all humanity, safe, sustainable, peaceful, inclusive, just, equal, orderly, and resilient. As I have documented in my writings, Summit of the Future and Pact for the Future were largely planned and coordinated by the Stimson Center, a think tank closely affiliated with the aims and strategies of the aforementioned Roundtable network. And doesn't the triangles, stars and the rising sun on the report governing our climate future reminds of something? This year, the focused energy from the many meditators around the world were directed to the WF's annual meeting with the motto, Collaboration for the Intelligent Age. Loses Trust views WF as a nucleus of goodwill ready to be fanned into a flame. It is noteworthy that the description of World Economic Forum has a remarkable similarity with Loses Trust definition of the masters of wisdom. The leadership of WF is deeply anchored in the various roundtable groups, with BlackRock's Larry Fink, a member of Council on Foreign Relations and Trilateral Commission, and ROC's André Hoffman, a member of the Club of Rome and senior advisor of the Chatham House. WF CEO Börje Brende is a member of the Bilderberg Steering Committee. There is no doubt that this nucleus of goodwill is committed to implementing the plan. and the next step has been initiated. As expressed in Alice Bailey's book Esoteric Psychology, the inner structure of the World Federation of Nations will eventually be equally well organized, with its outer form taking rapid shape by 2025. In his speech at Windsor Palace on September 17, 2025, Donald Trump praised the unbreakable bonds between the United States and the United Kingdom.
The British gave the world the Magna Carta, the modern parliament, and Francis Bacon's scientific method. They gave us the works of Locke, and Hobbes, Smith, and Burke, Newton, and Blackstone. The legal, intellectual, cultural, and political traditions of this kingdom have been among the highest achievements of mankind. There's really never been anything like it. The British Empire laid the foundations of law, liberty, free speech, and individual rights virtually everywhere the Union Jack has ever flown, including a place called America. You know that place very well, don't you? We're joined by history and fate, and by love and language, and by transcendent ties of culture, tradition, ancestry, and destiny. We're like two notes in one chord, or two verses of the same poem, each beautiful on its own, but really meant to be played together. The bond of kinship and identity between America and the United Kingdom is priceless and eternal. It's irreplaceable and unbreakable. And
our two nations have an exceptional legacy of shared discovery. Together we laid the foundations of nuclear science, mapped the human genome, and built the internet, upon which all contemporary commerce, communication, and defense is based. Together, our scientists and engineers are shaping the world of tomorrow, not least with new partnership agreements on technology and the prosperity that stands to bring. Our countries have the closest defense, security, and intelligence relationship ever known.
The following day, at the signing of the tech prosperity deal, Trump declared that AI is about to take over the world. A white paper was published in May this year by WF's Global Government Technology Center, discussing the future of governance. The paper describes the development of an automated digital system that will run with minimal human intervention. This system will have the ability to respond before any human has time to react, and working alongside autonomous physical systems such as drones and robots to solve any upcoming crisis. This is consistent with a singleton hypothesis by futurist philosopher Nick Bostrom, where a single decision-making agency will be able to prevent any threats to its own existence and supremacy by using surveillance, mind control, and other security technologies. Ultimately, this will give rise to the digital world brain, an automated digital control system that will ensure a just, inclusive, and resilient future that works for all. A perfect world system, an agentic state with the ability to perfect humanity and the world. It really looks like the Black Lodge has outsmarted the White Lodge. Or maybe they've been part of the same team all along. But in a world mired by conflict, there are still some chess moves left. I will end with a quote from my book, Rockefeller Controlling the Game. The path towards becoming a better person is something uniquely individual and cannot be applied to humanity as a whole. It is not possible to take shortcuts with the help of technology and become a godlike superhuman. Real human development can only be achieved through the personal experiences, challenges, and lessons we all face during the course of our lives. through the hard work of acquiring true knowledge, maturity and wisdom. Only we ourselves are responsible for building and caring for the temple. You can find more information about the spiritual, techno-spiritual agenda in my books, available at Amazon and at Faros Media. My latest articles can be found on Substack. Support my work by becoming a paid subscriber. Thank you.